Discipline is freedom. Master yourself, master everything. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. You will not rise to your potential. You will fall to the level of your discipline. That's the truth. No one puts on motivational posters, because hype is easier to sell than hard work, because shortcuts seduce the restless, because modern comfort has made struggle feel optional. But in a world obsessed with ease, discipline is rebellion. And rebellion is where freedom begins. Freedom has been misbranded. It's been sold as indulgence, as spontaneity, as the right to do whatever you want. But real freedom is earned. It's not the ability to act on every impulse, it's the strength to ignore most of them. It's not the absence of structure, it's the power to choose your own. This book is not about productivity hacks. It's not about waking up at 4 a.m. or building color-coded calendars. It's about something far deeper. It's about becoming the kind of person who can trust themselves. The kind who keeps their word when no one is watching. The kind who doesn't wait for motivation because they've built something more reliable, identity. That's what discipline creates. Not just habits, but a self. A strong, grounded, resilient self. One that doesn't need applause to act. One that doesn't vanish when the mood shifts. One who knows, deep in the bones, that excellence is not an act of inspiration, but of obedience to your highest standard. As Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl wrote, what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal. Freedom is not found in escape. It is found in effort with meaning. You won't be asked to be perfect, but you will be asked to be honest with yourself, about the lies you've believed, about the comfort you've worshipped, about the strength you've avoided. This book is a contract between who you are now and who you're willing to become. Every chapter will press against your comfort, but pull you closer to clarity. You will be challenged, not to prove something to the world, but to reclaim something within it, yourself. If you're ready to stop drifting and start directing, read on. The path isn't easy, but it is yours. Chapter 1. The Great Lie: Why Freedom Feels Good but Fails You. A man wakes up without an alarm. No boss to report to, no obligations. He scrolls, eats what he wants, and does what he pleases. He's free. But look closely, his apartment is cluttered, his finances, a mess. His ambitions, ghosts. He says he's choosing this life, but really he's drifting. His freedom? A gilded cage. Modern culture has sold a lie, that freedom means the absence of rules, the rejection of discipline, the indulgence of every impulse. We're told to follow our feelings, to chase ease, to be spontaneous, but that kind of freedom, untethered and reactive, doesn't liberate, it enslaves. Freedom without form becomes chaos. It's the student who never studies, the artist who never finishes, the dreamer who never builds. Without structure, energy disperses. Without intention, days dissolve. And the paradox sets in: the more we indulge our whims, the less free we become. Think of a river. When its banks are strong, the water flows with force and purpose. Remove the banks, and the water spreads aimlessly, becoming stagnant, directionless. That's what life becomes without discipline. What looks like liberation erodes into waste. Time gets swallowed. Opportunities decay. Confidence evaporates. We've confused freedom with indulgence, but doing whatever you want, whenever you want, eventually leads to doing nothing well, nowhere fast. The pursuit of comfort breeds complacency, and complacency is the graveyard of potential. The very thing we ran from, structure, is what we end up needing most. This is the great lie, that freedom is found in saying yes to everything. In truth, real freedom is born the moment you begin saying no. No to distractions. No to shortcuts. No to the temporary thrill that steals from your future self. The undisciplined life whispers sweetly, but it delivers bitter regret. Discipline is the quiet architect of greatness, not loud, not flashy, but dependable. It shows up when motivation sleeps. It moves when emotion protests. It keeps its word in silence. And through its repetition, it carves character. You don't see it immediately, but its fingerprints are all over the lives of the masters, the athletes, the creators, the builders. Behind every moment of genius is 1,000 disciplined hours no one applauded. Yet discipline isn't about punishment. It's about alignment. When your actions serve your values, when your habits match your hopes, that's discipline. It's not about suppressing who you are, it's about directing who you're becoming. Like a sculptor removing excess stone, discipline shapes you into something deliberate, something powerful. Many resist this path because it demands confrontation with laziness, with fear, with the ego. But those who step into it discover something rare: inner peace. Not the kind found in retreat, but the kind earned in resistance. Because nothing quiets the mind like knowing you're doing what you said you would. That's self-respect. That's sovereignty. Freedom isn't the absence of discipline. It's its result. The ability to move freely, speak clearly, build boldly, that only comes from inner order. A disciplined life isn't smaller. It's sharper, cleaner. More cleaner, more potent. Less noise, more signal. And so the lie must die, that freedom and discipline are enemies. They are, in fact, partners. Discipline clears the chaos. It silences the distractions. It removes the weight of indecision. And in that space you rise, not as a prisoner to your impulses, but as a master of yourself. This is where your journey begins, not with more freedom, but with better choices. Not with easier days, but with clearer purpose. The freedom you seek is real, but only if you're willing to earn it. Chapter 2. The True Nature of Discipline. Picture a monk rising before dawn. He sits in stillness, wrapped in silence, his day guided by rituals older than memory. To the modern eye, it looks like a life of restriction. Yet if you ask him, he'll tell you he's never felt more free. This is the paradox: what appears to be confinement from the outside is liberation on the inside. Discipline suffers from a branding problem. It's mistaken for drudgery, punishment, a joyless grind. People recoil from the word, associating it with rigid routines, with something imposed rather than chosen. But this misunderstanding is precisely what keeps so many trapped. Discipline isn't the enemy of freedom, it's its greatest ally. To understand discipline, we must strip away the cultural noise. Discipline is not about suppressing your desires, it's about directing them. It's not about denying who you are, it's about choosing who you will become. Discipline is desire harnessed, not killed. It's choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term indulgence, knowing that what you want most is worth more than what you want now. Discipline is not cold. It is not harsh. In its purest form, it is devotion. A sacred agreement between your current self and your future self. It says, I will not abandon you when it gets hard. I will not betray you for comfort. I will meet you there, every day, with action. Look at any person who has done something remarkable, built a legacy, changed lives, created beauty, and you will find beneath their success a quiet furnace of discipline. They may have started with talent, but talent without discipline is wasted potential. Talent without discipline is a firework, brilliant for a moment, then gone. Discipline is the engine that keeps showing up long after the world stops clapping. Even nature tells this story. The oak tree stands tall not because of a single burst of effort, but because of steady growth through seasons, rooted, resilient, disciplined. The mountain doesn't rise overnight. The river doesn't carve the canyon in a day. Greatness is not given, it is chiseled. Still, discipline is often resisted because it requires us to say no to ourselves. And that's where the battle lies. It's not between you and the world. It's between you and your lesser instincts, the part of you that wants to sleep in, scroll endlessly, numb out. Discipline isn't aggression toward yourself, it's compassion for your higher self. It says, you are made for more than this. Ironically, when you surrender to discipline, you gain what most people chase their entire lives: clarity, confidence, calm. You stop being pulled in 100 directions, you stop negotiating with excuses, you no longer need permission, applause, or perfect timing. Discipline makes you self-sufficient. You become your own source of strength. Freedom isn't found in avoiding structure, but in creating the right structure. A structure that supports your deepest values. One that protects your focus, elevates your energy, and makes excellence predictable. That kind of freedom doesn't scream, it hums. It doesn't crash through walls, it moves with quiet certainty. So let go of the old definition. Discipline isn't the enemy of joy, it's what clears the space for it. It's not the death of spontaneity, it's the framework that makes meaningful spontaneity possible. Without discipline, life is reactive. With it, life becomes intentional. Discipline isn't something you have to do. It's something you get to build. It is the act of choosing yourself, again and again, until the choice becomes who you are. The world doesn't need more scattered intensity. It needs sustained integrity. That is the true nature of discipline, not a cage, but a compass, and with it you stop drifting and start directing. Chapter 3: The Real Enemy, Distraction, Emotion and Delay. You sit down to work. 5 minutes later, you're checking your phone, and a message, a scroll, a quick reply, another 5 minutes gone. Then, a craving, maybe a snack. Back to work, but now your focus is fractured. The task feels heavier. You blame your attention span, but the enemy isn't your brain. It's your environment, it's your habits, it's distraction, emotion, and delay. Discipline often fails not because people are lazy, but because they're ambushed by these three invisible thieves, each one subtle, each one persuasive. Together, they steal time, energy, and momentum, not in dramatic acts, but in small, forgettable moments that add up to a wasted life. Distraction is the most seductive. It whispers promises of stimulation, escape, entertainment. It disguises itself as productivity, a new podcast, a better planner, a research article. But distraction never delivers progress. It only mimics it. The brain, wired for novelty, rewards these detours with dopamine, while your deeper goals collect dust. Every time you answer distraction, you train your mind to avoid discomfort, and discipline cannot grow in a mind that fears stillness. Emotion is the most volatile. It swings like a pendulum, high in the morning, low by noon. We think we're rational, but most days we are ruled by moods. When the work feels heavy, when the feedback stings, when doubt creeps in, emotion says, quit, postpone, do something easier. But discipline means doing what matters, even when you don't feel like it. Emotion is data, not direction. It should inform, not decide. The disciplined are not emotionless, they are emotion aware, choosing action over impulse. Delay is the most deceptive. It wears the mask of logic. You'll do it later. Tomorrow will be better. Wait until you're more ready. It sounds wise. It feels responsible. But delay is a liar. It trades action for fantasy. It convinces you that time is abundant and that your future self will be stronger, more motivated, more disciplined. But if you won't act today, you likely won't act tomorrow. Discipline is forged in the now, not in some mythical future when life is perfectly aligned. These enemies do not shout. They whisper. They make tiny negotiations. Just 5 more minutes, just this once. You deserve a break. And so the day dissolves, not in failure, but in compromise. Not in rebellion, but in drift. The most dangerous threats to your freedom are not catastrophic, they are consistent and quiet. To overcome them, you must build awareness. Notice when distraction hooks your attention. Notice when emotion hijacks your decision-making. Notice when delay speaks in the language of reason. The goal is not to eliminate these forces entirely. That's impossible. The goal is to interrupt their control, or to pause, to observe, to choose. Discipline begins with presence. Being fully here, not lost in a tab, a text, or a train of thought. It grows with repetition, choosing focus over frenzy, courage over comfort, action over avoidance. The more you choose discipline, the more natural it becomes. The less you obey distraction, emotion, and delay, the less power they hold. Freedom is not a feeling. It's a practice. It's not something you stumble into, it's something you fight for. Every time you silence a notification, every time you work through the urge to quit, every time you begin when it's inconvenient, you win. Not just the moment, yourself. Discipline isn't about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming sovereign. Not perfect, but present. Not rigid, but rooted. And once you've seen the pattern of these enemies, you can break it. You can begin again, on purpose. Chapter 4: The Anatomy of Self-Mastery. There is a rare kind of person who walks into a room and brings order without saying a word. Their presence is composed, focused, untouchable. It's not arrogance, it's not dominance, it's self-mastery. And it's earned, not given. These people don't chase control of others. They've already conquered the one battlefield that matters, themselves. Self-mastery is the cornerstone of discipline. It isn't about suppressing your emotions or denying your humanity. It's about leading yourself when no one else is watching, when there's no applause, no deadline, no threat. It's the quiet execution of character over chaos. At its core, self-mastery is a contract, not with the world, with yourself. It is the invisible agreement between who you are and who you are becoming. It says, "I will not betray you." Every time you follow through, every time you resist the urge to fold, you honor that agreement. And with each kept promise, your confidence compounds. Most people don't lack motivation. They lack trust in themselves. They've broken too many silent commitments, skipped too many mornings they said they'd start, closed too many notebooks they said they'd fill. And each time, the internal voice grows quieter, not out of shame, but from fatigue. Self-mastery is about restoring that trust, rebuilding the bridge between intention and action. But make no mistake, self-mastery is not about control. It's not about perfection. It's not about sterilizing your life of all mistakes. It's about ownership. Radical, relentless ownership. You may not choose your circumstances, but you choose your response. You choose your effort. You choose your energy. And in those choices you declare your power. Think of a warrior. Not the one shouting, posturing, flailing, the one breathing, still, unshaken. Their mastery isn't in their aggression, it's in their awareness. The ability to observe their thoughts, to feel their fear, to carry the weight of the moment without breaking. This isn't superhuman. It's trained, rehearsed, forged in repetition. The path to self-mastery begins with attention. Pay attention to your patterns, to your defaults, and to your excuses. It's not enough to want more, you must understand what keeps you from it, the lies you tell yourself, the small comforts you protect, the stories that justify delay. Self-mastery starts by facing the mirror without flinching. Then comes the test. Will you do the hard thing without being forced? Will you move without being pushed? Will you show up when the mood is missing? That is the muscle of mastery. Not intensity, but consistency. Not bravado, but humility. Every moment you choose discipline over ease, the muscle grows. Every time you act without needing to feel like it, the chain strengthens. The world is noisy, unpredictable, full of chaos. You cannot control it. But you can create a center inside yourself that nothing shakes. That's what self-mastery gives you, not immunity from hardship, but indifference to it. Not because you don't feel it, but because you've trained to rise anyway. And when you master yourself, you stop chasing permission. You stop outsourcing your power. You don't need the right mood, the right conditions, the right praise. You just move. Quietly, boldly, daily. That kind of internal leadership is rare. And when you cultivate it, you become unstoppable, not because the world bends to you, but because you no longer bend to the world. Self-mastery is not a destination. It is a daily act of devotion. It is not glamorous. It is not easy, but it is freedom. Because once you can trust yourself, truly and deeply, everything changes, not just what you do, who you are. Chapter 5. Rituals over motivation. Motivation is a liar. It arrives dressed as inspiration, whispering promises of transformation, only to vanish when the real work begins. It floods your mind with enthusiasm in the morning, then disappears by afternoon. You wait for it like a fair-weather friend, unreliable, unpredictable, emotionally driven. Those who depend on motivation live in cycles of start and stall. Those who rise above it build rituals. Rituals are the architecture of discipline. They don't ask how you feel. They don't care if you're tired. They exist to remove negotiation from your day. They are not habits formed by accident. They are systems forged by choice. A ritual is a decision made once that you don't have to make again. You don't wonder if you'll do it. You just do it, not because you're in the mood, but because that's what this version of you does. Great lives are not built in bursts of enthusiasm. They're built in rhythms. Musicians don't wait for divine inspiration, they practice scales. Writers don't rely on sudden genius, they show up to the page. Athletes don't train only when they feel powerful, they train to become powerful. Rituals transform action from optional to inevitable. They make consistency automatic. Consider the morning ritual. It is the launch pad of your day. If your first hour is reactive, checking messages, scrolling feeds, rushing, then chaos owns you. But if your first hour is intentional, movement, stillness, reading, reflection, you reclaim the driver's seat. You don't stumble into your day. You shape it, you direct it. And that momentum carries forward. Evening rituals matter just as much. They are the transition between who you were and who you will be tomorrow. A nightly walk, a journal, a shutdown routine, these are not luxury behaviors, they are self-leadership in motion. They allow the mind to settle, the body to recover, the purpose to reset. A disciplined life is not a life of constant force, it is a life of thoughtful rhythm. Rituals work because they shrink resistance. They eliminate the mental tax of decision fatigue. Every day you make hundreds of small choices. Should I go for the run? Should I start that project? Should I meditate? Without rituals, each one becomes a battle. With rituals, the war is won before it begins. The action is embedded, the choice is embedded, you just follow through. This is not about rigidity, it's about rhythm. Life throws curveballs. Days will break form. But when your rituals are strong, even your fallback mode is better than most people's best days. You have a default setting that keeps you grounded when things unravel. That is the gift of structure. It creates stability when motivation disappears. The key is to start simple. Over-engineered routines collapse under pressure. Begin with one anchor ritual in your morning and one in your evening. Attach it to something that already exists: coffee, brushing teeth, shutting down your computer. Then repeat. The power is in the repetition, not in the intensity, but in the persistence. Motivation will still come. Let it, celebrate it. Ride the wave when it appears, but never depend on it. Motivation is for amateurs, rituals are for professionals. The difference is not talent, it's structure. Professionals don't feel their way into excellence, they ritualize it. Rituals are not rules. They are reverence, a way of honoring your time, your energy, your goals. They create a sacred space in your day where you choose purpose over chaos, intention over impulse. In that space, you are not driven by how you feel, you are driven by who you are becoming. Chapter 6: The Compound Interest of Discipline. Success rarely arrives in dramatic fashion. It doesn't burst through the door with fanfare. It tiptoes in, disguised as a small decision repeated over time. Most people never see it coming because they're looking for explosions. But real transformation whispers. It compounds. Just like interest in a bank account, discipline accumulates in silence, until one day, the balance shocks you. We live in a world addicted to immediacy. Results are expected by the end of the week, if not the end of the day. But nothing truly great is built at that pace. The sculptor doesn't shape marble in minutes. The tree doesn't bear fruit in its first season. Growth, real growth, is slow, invisible, and often unrewarded, until suddenly, it isn't. That is the compound interest of discipline. Discipline is the daily deposit. Each time you follow through, each time you choose consistency over comfort, you're contributing to an account that no one sees. There are no trophies for today's workout, no applause for writing a page, no reward for choosing water over soda. But make that choice 1,000 times, and the results become undeniable. What once looked like talent becomes traceable, what once seemed lucky becomes repeatable. The difference between ordinary and exceptional isn't found in a single day. It's found in what's repeated over hundreds of days. The disciplined person is not necessarily smarter, stronger, or more gifted. They've simply learned to do the boring things long enough for them to matter. They understand that the magic isn't in the intensity, it's in the duration. People often ask for the secret. They want the hack, the shortcut, the cheat code. But the truth is far simpler and far less glamorous. Do the thing, do it again, then do it again. And when it stops being exciting, do it still. That's where the edge is. Most people sprint and burn out. The disciplined walk, every day, and arrive where sprinters never do. There will be days when you feel like nothing is changing. That's part of the process. Results lag behind effort. There is always a delay between planting and harvesting. But just because you don't see the change doesn't mean it isn't happening. The gym doesn't reveal transformation in one session. A single act of courage doesn't rewrite your identity, but stack those sessions. Stack those acts, and over time, the person you were becomes unrecognizable. Discipline works best when it's tied to systems, not moods. Goals are good for direction, but systems are what create outcomes. A writer doesn't finish a book by aiming for 300 pages. They finish by writing a few hundred words a day. A leader doesn't build trust through declarations, they build it through consistent behavior. Systems turn aspirations into actions. They take the pressure off perfection and place it on process. If you want to become someone new, act like that person now. Not in dramatic fashion, but in small, repeatable ways. Discipline is identity in motion. Every time you act in alignment with your future self, you vote for that version of you. The more votes you cast, the more convincing the evidence becomes. Eventually, you're not just acting disciplined. You are disciplined. Freedom isn't won in a day. It is earned moment by moment, repetition by repetition. The results will not be instant, but they will be exponential. The compound interest of discipline is subtle at first, then staggering. Keep depositing. Keep showing up. Keep trusting what others abandoned too soon. Chapter 7. Emotional Discipline, Mastering the Storm Within. A storm doesn't ask for your permission. It arrives unannounced, shifts the sky, and tests everything not rooted. Emotions are the same. They swell and crash with little warning. Anger, doubt, fear, excitement, none are enemies, but none are leaders either. Emotional discipline isn't about denying what you feel. It's about not allowing what you feel to dictate what you do. Most people are emotional passengers. They ride whatever wave arrives, drifting from one reaction to the next. A harsh comment derails their day. A missed opportunity sinks their self-worth. A compliment inflates their ego. They live at the mercy of moods, believing their emotions are facts rather than data. But feelings are not commands. They are signals, not shackles. Discipline begins where reactivity ends. It is the art of the pause, the breath before the reply, the stillness before the decision, the silence before the next move. That pause is power. In it you find the space to choose. Not to suppress, not to explode, but to respond with clarity instead of chaos. That is the ground where emotional mastery is built. There's a myth that disciplined people are emotionally numb. Nothing could be further from the truth. They feel deeply. But they've trained their emotions to serve them, not sabotage them. Just as an athlete trains their body to perform under fatigue, the disciplined train their minds to function under pressure. They recognize that emotional storms are inevitable, but destruction is optional. To lead yourself, you must learn to lead your internal weather. The mind untrained is like a sky without anchor. Clouds drift, moods shift, and identity becomes fogged. But when you learn to sit with discomfort without fleeing, to feel fear without obeying it, to acknowledge anger without becoming it, you reclaim sovereignty. You become the eye of the storm, still, centered, watching. One of the most dangerous lies is that you must wait to feel ready. But readiness is a mirage. Emotional clarity often comes after the action, not before it. You don't need to feel brave to act with courage. You don't need to feel calm to choose restraint. You don't need to feel inspired to begin. Discipline makes those feelings irrelevant. It frees you from needing alignment before movement. Emotional discipline is not about rejecting emotion, it's about transforming it. Anger can become fuel, fear can become focus. Sadness can become depth, but only if you hold the emotion instead of being held by it. You must witness it, question it, and channel it. Let it move through you, not drive you. This kind of inner strength is forged, not found. It is built in the moments you want to yell but choose patience, in the moments you want to flee but stay grounded, in the moments you want to break but hold steady. Each of these moments is a brick laid in the architecture of self-control. Emotions are messengers, not rulers. Treat them with respect, not obedience. Hear them, but don't kneel to them. This is not coldness. It's clarity. It's the ability to hold fire without being burned, to feel deeply without being drowned. Emotional discipline gives you access to your full self without being enslaved by any part of it. The world will always be full of noise, full of friction, full of triggers. But if you build this muscle, if you learn to lead your emotional weather, you become unshakable. Not because the storms stop coming, but because you've mastered how to move through them without losing yourself. Chapter 8. Discipline in the dark, when no one is watching. Integrity is not built in the spotlight, it's built in silence, in the unseen hours, in the choices made without witnesses. The world loves visible discipline, the gym posts, the hustle quotes, the achievements measured in metrics. But the most powerful discipline is the kind no one claps for, the discipline in the dark. There's a strange clarity that emerges when you ask yourself one question: who am I when no one is looking? That question is a mirror, not the kind that reflects appearance, but the one that reveals alignment. Most people perform discipline. They are structured when observed, consistent when praised, diligent when accountable. But that's not discipline, that's choreography. Real discipline is what remains when applause fades. When you wake before the sun and choose not to hit snooze, no one knows. When you sit down to do the work, even when it's boring or invisible, no one celebrates. When you follow your routine, honor your values, and make the hard choice with no reward in sight, no one cheers. And yet, it's those moments, stacked quietly, that build the strongest version of you. The danger of external validation is subtle. It feels good to be recognized, to be acknowledged. But when your motivation relies on others watching, you become dependent. You lose autonomy. You perform instead of practice. You posture instead of progress. The person led by the eyes of others is never truly free. Discipline in the dark requires something deeper than approval. It requires purpose. Not the kind etched in a mission statement, but the kind that anchors your behavior. You must know why you do what you do. Not for praise, not for recognition, but because it aligns with who you've chosen to be. Purpose makes the dark room bearable. It gives the lonely work meaning. In this space you meet your real self, not the curated version, not the projected one. The real you, the one who chooses between Netflix and study, between silence and distraction, between drifting and deliberate effort. That version of you is either forged or forgotten in these small, invisible moments. The truth is, no habit will hold without private commitment. Public declarations can ignite motivation, but they won't sustain it. Only private standards can do that. You must decide, in the quiet, what kind of person you are. And then you must act like it, again and again, without needing a stage. This isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about returning to the work even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching. That is the measure of self-leadership. It's easy to be disciplined with an audience. But the disciplined in the dark move from something higher, something sacred. They do the work not because it's seen, but because it's right. There's a strange reward hidden in the shadows. Over time, private victories become public strength. The invisible becomes undeniable. The person who trains in secret moves through the world with quiet certainty. They don't need to prove anything. They've already proven it to themselves, and that's the deepest form of confidence, not noise, not bravado, but self-trust, built alone, in the dark, when no one else clapped, when no one else knew. Just you and the standard you refuse to lower. If you want to become unshakable, build your discipline there, not under the lights. Not for the crowd, but in the stillness, in the routine, in the refusal to compromise when it's easy to. That's where strength is born. That's where freedom is found. In the dark. Chapter 9, Time, Energy, and Focus, the Holy Trinity of Control. Time is fixed. Energy fluctuates. Focus fades. And yet these three elements, when disciplined, create unmatched personal power. They are the Holy Trinity of self-leadership. Control them, and you bend the day to your will. Lose them, and you become a servant to the whirlwind of demands, distractions, and detours. Most people don't lack ambition, they lack clarity in managing these inner assets. They wake late, already behind. They push through fatigue, mistaking motion for progress. They start a dozen things and finish none. It's not that they're incapable. It's that their power is diluted. The disciplined, however, know that how they use their time, protect their energy, and direct their focus determines everything. Time is not your problem. Your choices are. Everyone receives 24 hours, but not everyone experiences them equally. For the undisciplined, hours vanish in busyness that leads nowhere. For the disciplined, hours are invested like capital, measured, deliberate, intentional. Time doesn't need to be found. It needs to be claimed, protected from what is urgent but unimportant. Discipline with time begins when you stop treating it like something you have and start treating it like something you spend. Energy is your true currency. It's not just how long you can go, it's how well you show up. The body is not a machine to be squeezed, but a system to be respected. Sleep, movement, nutrition, sunlight, these are not luxuries. They are leverage. When you guard your energy, you raise your capacity. Discipline here is not about pushing harder. It's about knowing when to push and when to recharge. The undisciplined drain themselves on things that don't matter. The disciplined conserve and channel their vitality toward what does. Focus is the gatekeeper. It determines whether your time and energy actually translate into progress. Without focus, effort leaks. The modern world is engineered to steal your attention: notifications, noise, novelty. Each one fragments your mind, training it to crave stimulation instead of depth. Discipline reclaims that attention. It says no, not just to the bad, but to the good things that distract from the great. The ability to lock in on one thing, deeply and without flinching, is becoming rare, and therefore, it's becoming powerful. When these three align, time used wisely, energy protected, focus sharpened, productivity becomes effortless. You stop scrambling. You stop rushing. You start creating. You begin to move with precision. You become the kind of person who does in 2 hours what others can't do in 10, not through hustle, but through clarity, not through grinding, but through alignment. But none of this happens by accident. It requires boundaries. You must learn to say no, not only to others, but to yourself. You must learn to step away from urgency and into intention. You must accept that you cannot control everything, but you can control these three. And that is enough. Audit your day. Where does your time leak? Where does your energy dip? Where does your focus scatter? These aren't flaws, they're feedback. Discipline listens to that feedback. It adjusts. It simplifies. It removes. It elevates. Most people think discipline is about adding pressure. But more often, it's about creating space. Control over these three isn't about perfection, it's about rhythm. There will be off days. There will be moments of drift. But when you live by these levers, time, energy, focus, you always know how to return. You are never truly lost, because you have a compass. This is what it means to be sovereign in a distracted world, to govern your life from the inside out. Not to chase control over people or outcomes, but to master the territory within you. Discipline is the stewardship of your inner resources. And when you honor them, life begins to move differently, on your terms. Chapter 10. The Confidence Loop: How Discipline Builds Belief. Confidence isn't built by compliments. It's not granted by achievements. It doesn't arrive with a title or a trophy. Confidence is built in the quiet, disciplined moments where you keep your word to yourself. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's internal. And like all things worth having, it's earned. The common myth is that confidence must come first. That you need to feel ready, feel strong, feel certain before you act, but that's backward. Action precedes confidence. Execution builds belief. Every time you show up when it's easier to stay down, a message is sent: I can rely on me. And the more you prove that truth to yourself, the more unshakable you become. This is the confidence loop. Discipline feeds action. Action feeds evidence. Evidence feeds belief, and belief feeds more disciplined action. It's a cycle, slow to start, unstoppable once moving. The mistake most people make is waiting to feel confident before committing, waiting for perfect clarity before beginning. But confidence is not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct. The first steps are always awkward. Doubt is loud in the beginning. That's natural. But doubt isn't a signal to stop, it's an invitation to begin. And the smallest consistent actions carry the greatest weight: waking up early when no one sees, finishing the workout when no one cares, turning off the noise when no one asks you to. These moments, when added together, become proof. Not proof to the world. Proof to yourself. You can't fake this. You can fake charisma. You can fake certainty. But you cannot fake the knowing that comes from discipline. It's the kind of confidence that doesn't need to speak. It walks differently. It breathes differently. Because it knows, not from theory, but from follow-through. Real confidence isn't a performance. It's a memory. A memory of every time you didn't quit. every time you honored your standard, every time you moved forward despite resistance. These memories form the roots of internal strength. They cannot be bought. They must be lived. This is why discipline matters more than hype. Hype is emotional, temporary, loud, it fades. Discipline, on the other hand, is dependable, quiet, steady. It remains. And over time, discipline makes confidence predictable. It removes the guesswork. You no longer wonder if you'll do the work, you just do it. And that certainty becomes your anchor in a world of doubt. There will always be voices, external and internal, that question your worth, your path, your ability. But disciplined action silences them. Not with noise, but with truth. And truth is the foundation of self-belief. It's the difference between hoping and knowing, and between wishing and walking. Confidence without discipline is empty bravado. It collapses under pressure. But confidence born from discipline grows stronger under fire. It doesn't crumble when challenged. It doesn't shake when outcomes are uncertain, because it isn't built on opinion. It's built on effort. And here lies the deeper lesson. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the refusal to be ruled by it. It's choosing action in the presence of uncertainty. It's showing up, not because you're fearless, but because you're faithful to the path. Discipline makes that possible. Discipline says, I may not control the result, but I will not betray the process. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop chasing the illusion that one day confidence will descend from the sky. Instead, build it, brick by brick, action by action, discipline by discipline. Let your consistency become your credibility. Let your effort become your evidence. You don't need to be confident to begin. You need to begin to become confident. Discipline lights that path. Walk it long enough, and you'll look up one day and realize the person you hope to be is now the person you are. Chapter 11. Choosing the hard way, voluntary hardship, and the freedom it brings. The world teaches you to avoid pain, to chase comfort, to engineer ease. Every advertisement, every shortcut, every convenience whispers the same lie, that struggle is unnecessary and hardship is to be escaped. But discipline tells a different story. It invites you to choose the hard way on purpose, not as punishment, but as preparation. Not because life should hurt, but because it will, and you must be ready. Voluntary hardship is a forgotten art. It's the decision to carry weight before you have to say no when yes is easy. To train your mind and body to move through resistance instead of retreating from it. It is not masochism. It is not self-denial for its own sake. It is the recognition that strength is not built in comfort. It is built in friction, in challenge, in effort. The ancient world understood this well. The Stoics practiced discomfort intentionally, fasting, sleeping on hard floors, braving cold, to build resilience. Not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they feared becoming soft. They knew the truth: easy choices now create hard lives later. Hard choices now create lives that are unshakable. The disciplined person does not wait for struggle to arrive. They pursue it in small doses daily. They embrace the cold shower, the early alarm, the extra rep, the difficult conversation. These acts are not random acts of suffering. They are signals to the self. I am not ruled by comfort. I am not dependent on ideal conditions. I am capable in the chaos. Every time you choose the hard way, you cast a vote for strength. You tell your nervous system that discomfort is not danger. You rewire your relationship with effort. The task becomes less about survival and more about expansion. The edge becomes not a place of fear, but of growth. And slowly your identity shifts, from someone who avoids hard things to someone who seeks them, who welcomes them, who is made better by them. This discipline, this willingness to suffer a little on purpose, gives you a rare kind of freedom. You stop negotiating with every obstacle. You stop needing everything to be easy. You become harder to discourage, harder to shake, harder to break. While others panic in adversity, you are calm, not because you enjoy pain, but because you've met it before and it did not destroy you. Voluntary hardship creates contrast. It sharpens your sense of what matters. It makes simple pleasures more profound: a warm meal, a quiet moment, a completed task. These things mean more when they are earned. Discipline doesn't dull life, it makes it richer, because when you face the hard path, the rest of the terrain becomes navigable. But this is not about proving toughness. It's about choosing growth. Anyone can take the easy path. It requires nothing. But if you want transformation, real, lasting transformation, you must go where most won't. You must lean into the effort others avoid. Not recklessly, but deliberately. As a practice, as a philosophy, as a path to freedom. Freedom is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to face difficulty without losing your way. Discipline makes that possible, and voluntary hardship is its training ground. It is where resilience is born, where endurance is shaped, where inner strength is revealed. So choose the cold, choose the silence, choose the repetition, choose the discomfort that refines, and do it not for applause, but for alignment. With every hard step taken on purpose, you step closer to the version of you who fears nothing. Not because life is easy, but because you are ready. Take care and be well.